Steve Cooper is expected at the club's training ground today to say his goodbyes after being sacked by the club yesterday.
Forest are 17th in the table after 5 defeats in 6 games, with Nuno Espirito Santo the favourite to replace Cooper at the City ground.
Right, let's get some reaction to it all now. Delighted to say we've got the former Forest defender, Michael Dawson, live down the line to us. Good to see you, Michael. Thanks very much for joining us. I wish it was in, slightly more positive circumstances. And, with Cooper, so many emotions coming out from Forest fans and also in the media too. What were your initial emotions when you heard he'd been sacked?
Well, good morning. So disappointed for Steve Cooper and those Nottingham Forest fans, because the love they have for him and have had, and realise what he did for the football club. You've got to remember when he went in there, they were in a relegation fight in the Championship and they ended up getting promotion through the playoffs. He did the unthinkable. It was a miracle what he did. And last year, everyone had the odds that we were going to get relegated. However, they defied that and they stayed up. And he had to deal with a lot. 42 players coming through the door since that promotion day at Wembley when they beat Huddersfield. He's had a lot to deal with. And last year came good. They kept them up. This year, 14 players in, 7 on the final day. And things just haven't gone quite the way he wanted them to. I mean, the owners probably see a little vision where they see the football club in looking for probably a top 10 finish. That's way beyond where they should expect at this moment in time, in my opinion. The size of the football club, 23 years out of the Premier League, and you've just got to stabilise. Can we become a stable Premier League team? And that is a challenge. Yes, they're 5 points above relegation and probably think they should be ahead of where they are. But I have nothing but credit for what Steve Cooper has done at that football club, and he will be loved by every Nottingham Forest fan. And it was a sad day to see when he got sacked yesterday. But when you only have one win in 13, you know you're going to be coming under scrutiny.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, like you say, you've listed so many incredible achievements and so many incredible moments that Steve Cooper has been responsible for at Forest. Because of all that, do you think he deserved more time?
I mean, I said a couple of weeks ago, Olivia, when they lost to Everton, and then there was speculation surrounding it, and I didn't like it. I don't like it any football club when a manager is in charge and you hear the job's under threat. I think it's disrespectful. If an owner wants to make a decision, no problem. That's their rights. But there's been surrounding Nottingham Forest and Steve Cooper had this very similar last year when they went through a run of games. But those Nottingham Forest fans got behind the team, they got behind Steve Cooper, and he ended up signing a new contract. And it was the right decision. And they kept him in the Premier League. And that was their aim at the start of last season, was to stay in the Premier League. And I believed at the start of this season, that had to be the aim. Don't get carried away. Don't have too higher expectations. You try and build and improve on where they finished last year, and that was 16th. Could they improve on that? That was their aim. So I've got a lot of empathy for Steve Cooper. He's had a lot to deal with it. The turnaround of players can't be easy. And he'll be disappointed going into training and say his goodbyes today because, as I say, he galvanised that football club when they were in big trouble and fighting for survival in the Championship.
Do you reckon there's a risk of a real backlash from the fans at this decision?
This time last year, I think yes. And seeing everything that's coming out in the media and social media, that they still love Steve Cooper. And I think the players were still fighting for Steve Cooper. I watched the game against Fulham. The performance wasn't good enough. And to lose 5 against Fulham away from home. However, I covered them against Wolves, and they turned up, they put a fighting performance on, not with great quality, but they showed a different side of the performance, a desire, commitment and fight. And that was a fight that showed that they had the respect for the manager. I never saw Nottingham Forest getting relegated this season. I still don't. And if Steve Cooper was in charge, he would have turned this round. I'm convinced about that.
Well, Michael, Nuno Espirito Santo looks to be the man that's going to replace Cooper at Forest. Obviously, recently sacked from Saudi side Al Ittihad. Do you think this is a good fit?
I mean, look, I came up against Nuno a few years ago when he was at Wolves. In the Championship, he got them promoted, and then had 2 seasons where they were fantastic, probably overachieving in my opinion. We see him there, stood in the Tottenham dugout, and it didn't go to plan. I think that was a hard job for him when he went into Spurs. On the back of Jose, there was a lot of negativity around him getting the job, so it was always going to be a real challenge for him going into that football club. It was short, and then obviously now on the back of coming back from Saudi Arabia, this is a challenge for him. He's going in with a group of players. I think you look at his formation, he will play a back three, which Steve Cooper's played at times, so that the players will maybe won't take too long to adjust to that formation. I mean, and you just got to wish him luck if it is him who gets the job, and that's what we're starting to read and hear. And generally, when this starts coming out in the media, it tends to be not a million miles away.
Is he going to face, though, Michael, the same sort of problems that Steve Cooper faced? I mean, we had a graphic up earlier, showed that Forest have made 44 signings. Chelsea have made 33, to put that in context. Everyone's been talking about how difficult it's been for Pochettino to sort of knit together the Chelsea squad. So it's going to be pretty hard, isn't it, for Nuno to come in with all of those new players?
Well, this was something I looked at a few weeks ago, and I sort of realised that maybe when you're not winning football matches, you chop and changes, you don't know your best team, players are obviously not happy that they're in and out the team. And that's a surprise because I looked last year and it was probably a more consistent team. He knew his team, although, as I said, there was 42 players I think have come through the door since the summer of the promotion, which is an awful lot. But Nuno's going to, or whoever it is who comes in, is going to have to try and establish a settled team and try and get the best out of them and find the way of his formation and the way of playing.
You've already said, Michael, that you think Forest are going to stay up. They're 17th in the table currently. What does Evangelos Marinakis want? You've mentioned a top 10 finish, but is he aiming too high? What does he want from Nuno? What does he want him to do with this squad?
Survival for me, Olivia. That's all it has to be. As I've said before, I said at the start of last season, if Forest could stay up, it would be an achievement. And they did that. And I said at the start of this season, albeit they will look at the players that they've recruited this summer and they will believe that it was an improvement. And unfortunately, we aren't seeing that at this moment in time. But I mean, some of the players that they've brought in, Sangari, an awful lot of money from PSV, he hasn't hit the ground running. It takes time for these players not just to gel as a team, but settling with a family and all these kind of things. I mean, a 1 year has been a huge miss for Nottingham Forest when he doesn't play. I mean, he's missed the last 5 games, and Forest are a different team when he's not in it. I mean, you look at the players that I've talked about. Gibbs White last year for me was player of the season, absolutely magnificent. He's just come off it a little bit this year. So, you know, when you peak and then come off it slightly in the Premier League, you can get punished. So their aim this year, I do believe, again, is survival and try and keep building and improving and then establishing yourself as a Premier League team. Because I mentioned before, Nottingham Forest have been out of that Premier League for 23 years, and those fans are enjoying being back in the Premier League. The City Ground is a fortress. Last year, that was the reason why they stayed up. This year, it's not been quite the same.
And what about Steve Cooper? Because it seems like his stock is still relatively high. He plays attractive football when he's given the right players and the right tools to do so. Can you see him back in the Premier League soon? And if so, where?
That's a $1 million question. Now, I mean, I've said we talk about managers and don't be disrespectful to them when they're in the job. But managers come under scrutiny. That's the industry that they're in. If you don't win football matches, do I see him back in the Premier League? Yes, I do. Probably very, very soon when a job comes up, he will be linked because I think the job he's done, not just at Nottingham Forest. You look what he did at Swansea. You look what he did at England. He's a manager that when he speaks, you listen. And I'm a massive fan. Anybody who watches Sky Sports will realise that he's done an incredible job, and I wish him luck. And as I say, all the Nottingham Forest fans as well, he will go down as an absolute legend at the football club because of what he's achieved.